Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today we are taking a look at the solo stamina Dragon Knight build, the Poison Fang. This build is made for solo play in delves, public dungeons, dolmens, abyssal geysers, normal dungeons, and some veteran dungeons. Some normal dungeons as well. I shouldn't say all of them because there are some two-player mechanics, but you can take two solo builds into a dungeon and do those ones. It's pretty easy because they're just so damn powerful. Alright, let's get right into this one. We are a Khajiit on this one. Khajiit isn't the wisest choice, but I did want to show off a Khajiit build, so I did it with the Dragon Knight. I figured it would fit in here pretty good. As you can see, we do have 16k magicka, 24k health, a 27k stamina, and it works out really well. 900 almost magic recovery with a 668 stam recovery. We actually get that up pretty high with our buffs and everything. We do have a 2580 weapon damage with a 55% critical on the weapon side. We are using, do have a 19k spell resist with a 16k physical resist, but when we are buffed up, guys, we actually go to a 21 physical resist with 24k spell resist, just enough to make this build work out really well in the long run with its resistances. So moving on down, we are using the Lady Munda Stone to boost our resistances even more, so we do need that. And then we do have the Tri-Stat food, best food you can use for this build because you do need that extra max magicka for some of your buffs, and we'll get to those when we get there. So going over the gear, guys, again, Tri-Stat pots and Tri-Stat food is the best option for this build. Now, going over the gear sets, starting with the monster set, we are using Spawn and Mafala. As you can see, the one piece gives you max stamina, but that two piece, when you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, which you will be doing, you create a web for 10 seconds that deals 1,441 poison damage every 1 second to all enemies within 4 meters, and you reduce their movement speed by 50%. This effect can go off every 10 seconds, and it will be up every 10 seconds, so really good monster set for this build. The next one we have on our bar, or on ourselves here, is Jack of the Viper. Viper set is really good for this build because it gives us two things of crit, one thing of extra max stamina, and then the 5-piece. When you deal damage with a melee attack, you deal an additional 8,380 poison damage over 4 seconds, and this effect can occur every 4 seconds. This will proc every 4 seconds, guys, no matter what. Next up on our bar here, or on our gear here, is Swamp Raiders. Now, why Swamp Raiders, you might ask? One, it gives us spell crit, or weapon crit. Number 2 or 3, sorry, the 2-piece gives us weapon crit, 3-piece gives us weapon damage, 4-piece gives us more stam, and then the 5-piece adds additional 400 weapon damage to your poison and disease abilities. That means all poison damage we do, not from our proc sets, that we do from being what we are, is boosted by 400 weapon damage. That includes our poison injection, which we are using poison injection, or venom arrow, sorry, our venom arrow, and our noxious breath are boosted by 400 weapon damage, and that really does help boost our damage overall. And then going over the traits, of course, we are using fully reinforced, we're using infused helm, infused legs for the extra stats because we're a Khajiit. And then on the chest, we're using a reinforced chest with Nirn-honed everything else except for the shoulders, which are reinforced because they're heavy. And we are using a heavy shelled helm, light, or heavy shoulders, light helm. Everything else is medium. And like I said, Nirn-honed on these smaller pieces here, reinforced chest, everything else infused. Gives you a lot of stats with this. Moving on to the jewelry, we are using 2 healthy, so you will have to transmute these into healthy, and you want 2 weapon damage on here with an infused magic recovery. Now, everyone keeps asking me, why on a stand build are you using magic recovery? Because we use magic buffs and stuff to give ourselves things, and we need that magic recovery to make sure our magic pool stays good. Moving on to the weapons, we are using a 2-handed Swamp Raider sword with a poison enchant infused, and an infused Swamp Raider's bow with a weapon damage enchant to get us that extra weapon and spell damage. mainly weapon damage, to boost ourselves. We get up to almost a 4K, I think it is, weapon damage when we're fully buffed up. I'll show you guys at the end with the results from our combat metrics. So that's that. Now let's move on to the skills, guys, starting with your passives. Make sure you get all your class passives here. If you guys are wondering why I have these 3 skills active here, I'll get to that when we get to that point on the skills. But make sure you get all your class passives on your weapons. Two-handed, you want all the passives. Bow, you want all the passives. Now you can use dual wield with this, but if you do, make sure you're using 2 infused weapons, one with a hardening enchant in the offhand, and in the main hand you are using a poison enchant. Moving on to armor passives. Medium or light armor, top 3. Medium armor, all of them, of course. Heavy armor, the top 3. And then moving on to world skills. You do not have to be a werewolf with this. You can. It's kind of cool, but you don't have to. Soul magic, you want both of those. And then moving on to the fighters guild, you want to get all the passives because we are using Evil Hunter on both bars, guys. We also have Flawless Dawnbreaker. And the nice thing is if you use the other version of this, you can also get Major Savagery. Or Minor Savage, or Minor something. It increases your damage by 8%. Minor Berserk, that's it. So you can use that one, but you do have to cast it, which uses some resources that you kind of need. Mage's Guild, you just need Persuasive Will. And then on to the Racials, Khajiit, you want all the passives. The nice thing about the Khajiit is they do get the stam recovery, which is nice for this, and they also get an extra stealth and the crit. The crit is really important. Alchemy, medicinal use, and then provisioning, gourmand, and connoisseur. Now, going over the skills, very similar to a lot of my other builds, guys, when it comes to solo play. We do have Brawler up front. This is going to give us good damage on an initial hit, and then it does bleed all targets that you hit with it, which is good. It can also give you a damage shield that absorbs 2,310 damage every 8 seconds. Each enemy hit increases the shield strength by 100%. So this shield is really powerful with this. So next up, we have Noxious Breath. Now, Noxious Breath is really powerful dot. Does a lot of damage up front, really good damage over time, and then on top of that, it also applies Major Fracture to the enemies. Before you say anything about poison damage, there's a difference between poison damage and poison effect. Poison effect is not affected by penetration. Poison damage itself is. So that's why we have that Major Fracture. We want that Major Fracture. Next up, we have Spiked Bone Shield. We have this here for the damage it absorbs. It makes a shield based on 34% of your max health, so it's actually kind of big when you have 24k. And it also redirects 39% of the direct damage absorbed back to the enemy, which is really good overall. Next up, we have Rally. We have this here for the Major Brutality. It's also our main source of healing. We want to keep this up all the time. You want to cast this before you go into combat, so it starts tick healing on you, and then when you do damage, or when you need it, you can also activate it when it gets lower to give you a small burst heal. And it can heal for a lot of health because it can heal for 564% of the total health of 3,461. So it's boosted by that much. Next up, we have Evil Hunter. We have this here for the Major Savagery. Like I said, you can use the other one, but when you activate it, you have to come out of stealth, so it kind of useless. Next up, we have Flawless Dawnbreaker. We have this here for the damage. Lots of damage. We're going to be using this a lot. It also, while slotted, gives us 5% more weapon damage, and because we're a Fighters Guild, we get an extra 3% for this and this, so we actually get 6% bonus on top of that 5%. We get a lot of weapon damage out of this. On the back bar, we have Venom Arrow. Like I said, this will proc or be boosted by our monster, or by our Swamp Raiders set, so it will boost this damage by 400 weapon damage. This does insane damage when that procs, and it will be up pretty much non-stop. Next, we have Endless Hail. We have this here to launch arrows at our enemies, but it helps us keep up that weapon damage enchant. And then the next ability, I want to get down here so I can show you why we have it here. We have Eruption. We have this here because it does damage up front. It does do a little bit of damage over time, so it adds more dot damage. It is an area of effect. It's a 5-meter range, so it's really good. And when you get all those mobs grouped up on you, to set this down right underneath, right where you drop your Endless Hail, and it will do damage. So Endless Hail in it have the same diameter of range, so both of them 5 meters. Really good. It does cost magicka, and you only want to cast this once every 20 seconds, not 18. You want to let it wear off 20 seconds. The reason why, you want Mountain's Blessing. This is going to give you minor brutality for 20 seconds, which increases your weapon damage by another 10%. So in total, with this, just to show you, we're going to pop our rally. We're going to drop, we're going to drop that down. And then we're going to go back to that front bar, 3,194. When you add that extra spell damage to it, or weapon damage to it, we actually go up quite a bit. And our spell damage does boost as well because of it. So we go to about 2k spell damage with a 3k, well, almost 4k weapon damage. And that's why we have that there. Next up, we have a really good skill, Hardened Armor. This does give us Major Ward, Major Resolve, giving us physical and spell resistance equal to 5,280 extra for 20 seconds. And on top of that, it gives us a damage shield that's equal to 17% of our max health for 6.9 seconds. And then again, while active, your armor returns 639 magic damage to any enemy that uses a direct damage attack against you. That's why we boost up our max magicka. So, but it also grows based on our spell damage. So this actually goes up to about 700 and something spell damage, magic damage. So it's really good. Next up, we have Evil Hunter again for the Major Savagery. We want that high weapon crit here. And then on here, we also have Toxic Barrage. Now, another skill you can use, if you want, on this back bar, is the Corrosive Armor. Now, Corrosive Armor is really powerful. It limits incoming damage to you by 3% of your max health, so it's a lot of damage mitigation. It also deals poison damage. And then, while active, your attacks ignore all physical resistance, so you don't even need to use Noxious Breath. And you can actually have this up quite a bit. But I chose Toxic Barrage because it does do a lot of damage, but Corrosive Armor actually is better. So, good trade-off there, good setup. Overall, this build is really, really powerful. But let's go ahead and look at the CP to see how powerful we can make it. We have 66 in Ironclad, reducing damage taken from direct damage attacks by 22%. 2 into Medium Armor Focus, increasing our physical resist by 209. Just gives us a little bit extra. And then moving on over here, we have 31 into Thick Skin, reducing damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. 56 into Hardy, reducing damage taken from physical, poison, disease damage by 12%, and then 56 in Elemental Defender, increasing Flame Frost Shock, or reducing Flame Frost Shock and magic damage by 12%. Overall, we have really good damage mitigation. And then moving on over here, we have 40 into Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of our damage shields by 16%, and then 19 into Quick Recovery, increasing healing received by 5%. Moving into the green tree, we have 56 into Warlord, reducing break free cost by 20%, 23 into Sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 14%, and then 23 into Bashing Focus, because you do bash with this build, guys, reducing bash costs by 14%. Now, moving on over to this one, we have 43 into Arcanus, increasing magic recovery. Why not stam recovery? We're a Khajiit. We get an extra 10% there. Plus, we're using Green Dragon's Blood, which boosts our... Or we're using a potion, which also gives us 20% extra stam recovery. So we actually go up to about an 800 stam recovery. We have 43 into Tenacity, increasing our stamina return on fully charged heavy attacks. We are heavy attacking too with this build to proc that Mephalas. So 56 into Tumbling, reducing dodge roll cost by 20%, and 26 into Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost by 11%. Moving on, we have 43 into Bless. This increases our healing done by 10%. This is very, very important. And then moving on over here, we have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert, increasing our light and heavy attacks with our two-handed sword and bow by 10%. 40 into Master Arms, increasing all direct damage done by 16%. And then we have 40 into Thaumaturge. This increases our direct damage done with damage over time effects by 16%. We have 40 into precise strikes, increasing our critical damage done with healing and stamina abilities, critical healing, sorry, with damage and healing, by 16%. Gosh. And then we have 48 into piercing, giving us extra physical penetration by 3,852, and then 43 into mighty, increasing physical poison disease damage by 10%. Now, you guys are probably wondering why I have this here. It's because we have so much penetration that it does increase all of our damage over time. So we can actually reach that higher penetration cap or part, making those damage over time effects do more damage. The only thing that we don't want to do is boost our poison effect. We're not worried about poison effect. We're worried about poison damage. So when people say, "Oh, well, poison damage isn't affected by penetration," it is. Noxious breath damage over time is. Poison injection is boosted by this. So you want to keep those damage really high so those things crit for more. Now you can take out of here if you want, and you can go with this. You can take this down, I think, forget, but you want to take this up to 56 and this up to 56. If you want to boost the damage, you can also take this up to 56 and put the rest into here if you want, and it will give you a little bit better on your damage as well, but you just don't have enough as much penetration. So we're going to go ahead and leave this alone, and now let's go ahead and see this build in action. Buffing up, got our rally going. We're going to go ahead and do this Poison Fang. We're going to hit this guy with Poison Injection, drop our hail, drop our circle, and then go right into doing this right here, because now we got all that penetration on those enemies, and you saw how fast they died there. This build is all dots. Oops. And like I said, that brawler, look at this, that's 9k shields just from 4 enemies hit. But if you get a lot of enemies around you, like we're about to have, and you buff up all your shields, you get a lot of shields, and then you just do your brawler once, boom, back up. And you will keep the shields up non-stop with this, so... And like I said, you want a heavy attack because you want that monster set to proc, guys. Oops. Gonna die. No, I'm not. Bone shield. Rally. Back to full health. Alright. So now that you guys have seen this, it will take me a while to kill this guy because he's just really OP with his health. I mean, what does he have? Like, I think he's got like something like 8k health. It's ridiculous. Wait until it says left combat, and then I'll show you guys that readout like I was saying on the there we go, so you guys can see for yourselves. Spawn of Fala was doing decent damage. Eruption, poison weapon, noxious breath. Noxious breath. This is the dot. This is the damage up front. Your hardened armor, all that stuff. Viper sting does a decent amount of damage. But the main thing is that you want to see here is the where is it? Well, 3,900 weapon damage, 60% crit, 5k penetration. Like I said, overall this build just does a lot, but it's that trying to find it now. But the thing for the poison, the Swamp Raider, it's up quite a bit, and that's what helps boost your noxious breath damage and your poison injection, or your venom arrow hit. As you can see, this thing hit for 8k here, and then up here the noxious breath was when it hit just itself, it hit for 4,187, and that's because of the Swamp Raider. So really good. This build's really fun to play with. I like it, like I said. I mean, this thing here, the Eruption, was doing a decent amount of damage on hit, but it wasn't doing a lot, or on hit it was doing decent damage. On damage over time, it does help with creating a lot more, and you have a lot more AoE. So that's what this build's all about. It's about just going in and mopping the floor with enemies. It's really fun. Not as fun as the Dragon's Rage in my opinion, but it's still a really cool build, really fun to play, but it's up to you guys which one you'd prefer. And that is it for the Poison Fang, guys. I hope you guys like it, and if you do, you know what to do. You can hit that like button, and if you like my videos and you want to see more by them, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.